East Conference, etc. Tom Herman, head football coach at Florida Atlantic, joins us on 365 Sports with Craig Smoak, Paul Catalina. I'm David Smoak. Coach, thanks for your time. We appreciate it. What and how do you go about managing what is going on with so many moving parts in college football these days? And is it at times almost not overwhelming, but just so many things have converged at once?
Yeah, I appreciate you guys having me. And thank you. But it has been, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think it's maybe not the volume or exactly what is happening. Maybe it's the fact that all of these are happening at the same time, and they're all affecting each other, and so it's just a really, really unique and interesting time to be around college athletics. It's certainly not what I signed up for 25 years ago when I started in this, for sure.
Coach, when you're at a school like Florida Atlantic that you are trying to help, grow their presence and grow the map and let people know, what's now about things, and you see these other leagues making decisions, how much more challenges does that make your sales pitch, knowing that you've got an interesting situation that's going on down there on the East Coast of Florida, but there's so many other noisy levels of different issues going on?
Yeah, I think it's actually good for us and the conference that we're in. I think obviously going into the American Conference at the time that we did proved to be a really smart move. And that being said, because I think something like 8 out of the last 10 or 9 out of the last 10 highest ranked group of 5 champion was the American Conference champion. And what does that mean? Well, great. You did it, or we did it when we were at Houston, and Luke's great teams at Cincinnati and Matt's teams at Temple and all those teams that went to New Year's Six games. So what does that mean here? Well, that means if you win the American Conference, you're going to the playoffs. And, well, you say, well, in the Big Ten, yeah, all that good stuff. That's great. We all know in those conferences, there's about 4 teams that can legitimately say they've got a chance at winning that conference. And, as far as our conference goes, we got 14 teams. I'd say every given year, you're probably staring at 10 to 12 in our conference. So if we can get the right mix of players in here and we do well enough to win our conference, which I think we've got a good enough staff. We are recruiting at a level to put us on that pace here very shortly. So I think if you win the American Conference, to know that you're going to go to the playoffs makes it a really, really exciting time at Florida Atlantic for sure.
Coach, you were away from the college game for a couple years, came back last year. Now that you've got your sea legs about you, I would guess a little bit more. Just kind of what was your initial impression jumping into the situation at Boca Raton, playing in the American, and now what does this spring mean in terms of the program and moving forward and strengthening it?
Yeah, well, when we decided to get back into it, my family and I, we said the job's got to check 2 boxes. Our family's got to be happy living there. And you got to be able to win championships. And in today's college football, I would argue those are 2 things that are hard to find in combination with a job. And we felt like this was one of them. We knew you go 4-8 for the first losing record as a head coach, and you scratch your head a lot over Christmas break, and you've got a lot of time to think about it. And as much as this place reminds me, because of the conference, because of the fertile recruiting grounds, because of the rise, it reminds me of Houston. When we took over Houston, that was an 8-win team. Tony Levine and his staff had done a really good job, and they were not too far off. And we just kind of put them over the edge to win 13 games that first year. But then you fast forward, and when we took over the second place I took over at the University of Texas, that was 3 straight years of losing for the only time in that school's 100 and something years of playing football. And we squeaked by with 6 wins, barely. But it took us a good year to get our kind of guys and our culture established. And if you guys remember, that year 2 was when we won 10 games and, beat Oklahoma, beat Georgia in the Sugar Bowl. And we have that same feeling here. Although we didn't win 6, just enough to get to a bowl game last year, similar type feel. Last year's team was 1-5 in 1-score games. So we had just enough talent to be in it, but not dominant enough talent to carry us. And we had just enough culture to be in it, but not good enough culture to carry us. And we feel like we've improved those two things, the talent level and culture. And I haven't been this excited about a season in a long time.
You mentioned the record last year and first losing season of your head coaching career. You laid out kind of like how that occurred and why that occurred, but was that tough to handle in the moment, or was that just part of the growing experience? Like, how did you handle that personally?
Not well. I don't handle losing well. And, it's the first time as a head coach, not being bowl eligible and first time not qualifying for a bowl game, I think since my second year at Iowa State back in like 09 or 10. It's been like 15 years. And so it's been a long time. But we feel like we're on the right track. You can't, in the shape that it was in, I think it would have been unrealistic to expect much more. I do think we had more in us. I fault myself and our staff. Like I said, our culture was just good enough, not dominant enough, and that's on us. And we've got to do a better job there. But you can't cut them all when you show up. You got to travel 70 every week, and we did our best to identify the ones that could help us win. That would be the best fit for the way that we do things, and we made the most out of it. And we're happy to be on the other side though now, and getting ready to kind of head onto this ascent, if you will.
Tom, you're in an area that has just unbelievable talent in Florida, and probably per capita. I know that Louisiana, Georgia, and a couple other places are also there. You've been in Texas. You have roots there, and we know how great this state is. How much does your connection at all, coaching in Texas, help you perhaps bring some of this talent to what is already a fertile state in Florida?
Not a whole lot. Yeah, we don't go too far. We go into South Georgia and Atlanta, and that's about it. The three counties that are make up our neighbors, Dade County to our far south, Broward County, where Fort Lauderdale is, and then Palm Beach County, where we are. Any given year, all of the Division I football signees in the state of Florida, something like 80% come from those three counties. So, and they're all within an hour's drive from campus. We're a mile and a half from the sand at the beach. We've got a lot to sell. And again, in today's name, image, and likeness world, and the fact that if you're going to win the American Conference, you're probably going to the playoffs. We feel like we offer, if we can get the money right, if our collective and everybody can get the money comparable to what some of these others are doling out, then we feel like we could have the next Ed Oliver, a 5-star guy that was smart as maybe any recruit that I recruited, because he said, Coach, if I don't get hurt, it doesn't matter where I play in college. I'm going to go to the NFL. And he was right. He was the 9th pick after 3 years at Houston. And he said, so I want to go where I'm comfortable. I want to represent my city, and I want to do really good things for the University of Houston. And we feel like we can do that here with the local talent that we have, because you don't need anything more than what FAU can provide you in order for success on the field and in the classroom.
Yeah, you barely have to get on planes anymore, right? To go recruiting.
Yeah, I didn't at Texas though either. Oh. that was pretty nice too.
Tom, what did you learn in your time away from college football? Did something? Was it a decompression? You still were involved in the game. What did you learn about yourself when you returned to college during that time away?
One, I missed the players. I realized, you kind of have an opportunity to take stock and kind of make sure you're doing things for the right reasons. And I miss being around the players and miss being a part of their lives and helping them grow. And I knew that college football was going to be different when I got back in. I knew that the players were going to be different. And, our messaging or the message may be the same, but the messaging might have changed a little bit. We're a little gentler in the way that we coach, and I didn't by any means say soft. I just meant we meet kids where they need to be met, and we still find a way to hold them to some very, very high standards and difficult standards, because that's what we'll always do. But if there's a change, it just comes from probably change in any given time as you turn the page to new generations, especially with the change in our game happening at such a rapid rate all at once. Adaptation is key, and we're adapting every year. But to be able to do it for at least one of those years, living at home and coaching my 8-year-old's baseball team and doing all that was a heck of a time that I'll miss for a long time. But I'm glad to be back doing what I'm supposed to be doing.
Coach, you mentioned just the era of change and not necessarily all for the worse or all for the better. Everybody's got their own position on it, but how different was it sitting in a recruit's living room? Was the conversation the same as it was 2 years ago when you were doing it, or was it a bit different than it was 2 years ago when you last did it?
It was for us, and it still is. I think it's certainly different than at the last place I coached than what it was 4 years ago when I was there. There was no money, didn't exist. You were selling kids on the university, the education, the power of everything, and that's kind of where we're at still here. The recruits, we're still not battling for recruits that are getting paid by collectives directly out of high school. So we're doing really, really well recruiting high school kids. We signed the second most, I believe, in our conference of high school signees, because we feel like in order to win the American Conference, to have the players requisite to do it, you gotta pay them one way or the other. Your collective is going to have to pay them on the front end, probably in the portal for us, and you're probably you're paying for some baggage probably there, or you find great freshmen, you develop the heck out of them, and one of them turns into the leading receiver in the country like we had last year, and you hope that you can be competitive enough to win the Power 5 schools or their collectives come calling, to get them to go be brand ambassadors for their collective.
When the basketball team made their run last spring, and I know that that last year was your first year, does that help because we know where the revenue comes from, and it's what you're coaching, football. But men's basketball can bring in some as well. I'm not sure exactly about the pecking order at Florida Atlantic, but how much does just that attention help?
It's immeasurable. I know coaches are prone to hyperbole, and I'm no exception, but I would argue it is the most impactful thing that's happened in this university since it opened its doors. If you go look at every metric, will tell you by being in the Final Four, it was something like $750 billion worth of exposure when you compile all of it together. So we take a lot of pride in that. They did a great job putting us on the map. I would argue that Howard Schnellenberger and a couple of those great teams that Coach Kiffin had did the same for our football program. But this is a new era. But I think our applications are up, our attendance is up. It has done nothing but energize this campus and been something that we've tried to feed off of.
That's a great answer. I appreciate that. Go.
Well, Coach, just from my perspective, I grew up in South Florida, and what I always thought of Boca was that, that's the old people. I live in Fort Myers, and there are a lot of old people in Naples, and, that's old. But, Boca used to be, the one that every other city could make fun of because their population was so old. I found out last year that FAU has since flipped that on its ear, and it's a young, happening, hot place now.
I was surprised. I thought once you being a native Floridian, you can kind of understand. I thought once you got past kind of Fort Lauderdale, it just became sleepy, beachy retirement communities. But no, Boca Raton is not what I had expected. We're 150,000 people. We've got 5 high. This is a very happening place, if you will. You know, we're the last stop south in Palm Beach County, so real estate's great here too. So there's a lot to like. We do have my commute to work goes from 12 minutes in the summer and early fall to about 16 minutes in the winter and early spring, because there are a lot of snowbirds here. But other than getting used to the extra 5 minutes of traffic, we have enjoyed immensely our year here in Boca, for sure.
Can't let you go without asking about your former college roommate in Dave Aranda, who had that spectacular 21 team. The last couple of years has been a struggle. He's had to change a lot of his staff. You've been at places when you've done that yourself. What are your thoughts about how Dave has handled his first ever head coaching job? And do you guys ever still stay in touch and kind of like trade secrets?
No, I don't know about secrets. You know Dave. I don't think I'm getting any secrets. I don't think I'm getting any secrets out of him. That's for sure. But yeah. No, we keep in regular communication. I would tell him when making some changes on your staff, just pray that the world's largest pandemic in the last 200 years doesn't show up that season when you're trying to acclimate 7 new coaches and players to a staff. No, Dave will do great. Dave's as bright a coach, as relatable to the players of the coaches I've been around. He's super smart. I hated going against his defenses when I had to. He'll be just fine. Dave's going to have that figured out. The Big 12 is certainly going to look different, but I'm excited for him in this new era of the Big 12, and still consider him a very good friend.
Thank you very much for your time, Tom. Appreciate it. Tom Herman, head football coach at Florida Atlantic, with us on 365 Sports. And, yeah, that run the basketball team